And then I decided I would make a denim picnic blanket for my mom. And I made it 2 layers thick. So 2 layers of denim patchwork together.
Yep.
I went through a lot of needles on that project. And it's so heavy, she's never washed it because she's like, I will break any washing machine I try to stick it in. And so because she can't wash it, she also won't use it. And it's also heavy. Like it takes 3 people to lift this thing. I was like, so obviously there was a learning curve.
You're listening to Fussy Cutters Club podcast, a show that gives you permission to cut into the good fabric so you can make quilts you love. And now your host, who believes it's not a crime to love using novelty fabrics, Ange Wilson.
Hi Fussy Cutters, welcome to another episode of Fussy Cutters podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I hope wherever you are, you're having a wonderful day. Today I am talking with Amy Chappell from Ameroonie Designs. Now, I hope I've said that right. We do talk about it in the podcast. It is a really unique and quirky name, and Amy goes into how she got it, which is really special. Look, I don't know whether you've ever had that experience of meeting someone and just being like, you're automatically part of my circle. You are the kind of person who you just want to have around and you just want to talk about stuff with and share ideas and support and encourage and cheer. This is Amy. I left this podcast just going like, man, I wish Amy was just down the road. We could hang out. We could talk about stuff. It was the first time that I'd met her, so that was really wild as well to have such an instant connection with someone. I love Amy's work, and it is one of her patterns is one of the ones that I am frequently drawn to for including in my newsletter because it makes me happy every time I see it. She's very talented. She has such a great way of looking at what she does and sharing what she does with the world. If you don't know Amy, you're going to be so grateful that you heard about her today. Trust me, because I am. I love it. Look, I could rave forever, but what's that going to do? So, without further ado, let's get chatting. Amy, thanks for joining me.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
You say that now. We'll ask you again at the end.
Deal. It's a deal.
Yeah. So, we have had a bit of a brief chat, but you are a rainbow-loving girl as well. Can you tell me a little bit about why you love rainbow so much? And is there a specific rainbow? Like, do you love a pastel rainbow or a saturated rainbow?
I'm a fan. No, more saturated. Definitely a saturated kind of a girl. And, for me, sewing and particularly quilting, my love for it really solidified is the right word, I guess, when I was struggling with postpartum depression after my last baby. And I went down in my sewing room during nap time, and there was a pile of little patchwork hearts. And it's actually on the wall behind me, but they were sitting on my sewing desk. And I was like, I have just a few minutes. I'm just going to sew those little hearts together. And I was like, oh, do I want to do them all cutesy? And I was like, no, I'm going to sew them in a rainbow because I just need it to feel right. And I sewed them together and I held it up and I was like, I love it. And in that moment, it was like part of me just clicked back into place. And it was the depression started to lift and I was like, I'm going to get through this. And so that was really the moment when I was like, okay, we're going to go all in on the rainbow. It just feels like home to me. So
Yep. So now it is interesting. So were you patchworking before your last child or did it because I started quilting as our IVF doctor told me that if I didn't get a hobby, I was going to implode and that would not be good. And I learnt to patchwork in our last round of IVF that was our successful round of IVF. And I often attribute the success of that round to the fact that I was so focused on fabric. I didn't care. Oh, you're doing something to me? Okay, whatever. I'm thinking about fabric.
Yeah.
And so were you patchworking before you had your last child or?
Yeah, but I came into it kind of sideways. I started in crafting. So I was making, greeting cards and into the big heyday of the scrapbooking era and stuff like that. And I had just my first baby when my mother-in-law gave me a sewing machine she'd found at a yard sale for $20. And so she gave me this sewing machine, and then she gave me a big garbage bag full of satin fabric and tulle. And we were, of course, so broke because we were newly married with this baby. I mean, not brand new married. Anyway. And so for Christmas, my neighbor and I decided that we were going to make little like circle skirts with the satin fabric, which, I mean, if you've ever sewn with satin fabric, you know that if it's not the most fun. It was very ambitious. I didn't know it was ambitious at the time, but so we made these
That's
little
when the good things happen.
skirts and stuff. And that was where I first started into even sewing, because I hadn't owned a sewing machine before that. I mean, I'd taken home ec in, school when you have to do, all of that stuff. And so I had that. And then I decided I would make a denim picnic blanket for my mom. And I made it 2 layers thick. So 2 layers of denim patchwork together.
Yep.
I went through a lot of needles on that project. And it's so heavy, she's never washed it because she's like, I will break any washing machine I try to stick it in. And so because she can't wash it, she also won't use it. And it's also heavy. Like, it takes 3 people to lift this thing. I was like, so obviously there was a learning curve.
Yeah. But it's the same thing. Like I often fondly in inverted commas, think back on my home ec teacher and think, if she could see me now, because I was like the first kid in the history of my high school to sew my fingers together in a sewing machine. So excellent. I was like, not the best. We did pillowcases as our introduction to sewing, and mine was 1.5 meters long because I didn't cut the fabric. I just folded it in half and made a sack. To the point where she at the end was like, you just go sit out on the veranda and make art, and the rest of us will learn how to keep a home. And I think I should have dedicated my first book to her, because I was like, I did it. I succeeded above all odds. But my grandmother gave me a sewing machine, and I often wonder with people who gift other people sewing machines, whether they see something in us that we don't see, or it's just an innate kind of, this thing brings me joy, so here, this will bring you joy. But because I hadn't sewn, I didn't sew. I grew up in the tropics, so we didn't have quilts. Like, why would you need them? And so it was a really weird, if I look back and go, oh, I was going to be a patchworker, I'd be like, nope. Is it the same thing for you? Do you kind of go, it's a really weird tangent that you've ended up on?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have a degree in biology and a minor in chemistry. I was going to be a doctor and get my MD, PhD, and, so wow. I look back now and I'm like, oh, well, this is not at all where I thought I would land.
But you do a lot of botanical kind of things in you do flowers and like the rainbow and stuff like that I think harks back to a biology kind of, you do a lot of nature, I guess. So do you think that's influenced it, or do you just kind of go, oh, I love flowers. Flowers is my...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that the biology, but the thing that's been interesting is that the more I know more people in this industry, there are quite a lot of science majors in this industry. Yep. And so I'm like, well, that must have something to, I don't know if it's the numbers or the, being able to see how things fit together and stuff like that. I'm not sure what it is, but it's been very interesting. Like, oh, you were a science major. Oh, you were also, that's very interesting that there's lots of us out there. So.
And engineers, lots of engineers ticking around in the quilting industry, which I kind of go, oh, there's a lot of geometry involved in quilting. So I kind of, but yeah, it is just really interesting. I worked for the public service in Australia for a very long time, and I worked in our, I think what you guys would call the welfare office. Like, I worked in social welfare. So, but in the IT section, right? So I didn't have it, like I built the systems. Anyway, I digress. And I remember when I started there in the introduction, and they went, you're going to find in this government department, there's lots of women in this government department, and it's because it's a welfare-based program that we're administering, and so women naturally tend to flock to the social welfare, that kind of assistance, helping, da-da-da-da. And then my husband works in the science department now, and lots of men doing mechanical stuff and engineering stuff and playing with tractors and stuff like that. And so you kind of go, I wonder if it is a thing where women are just more in touch with their creative side than men. But then I say that and I think, oh, I know lots of woodworkers and who knows. Anyway, I digress. We're talking about fabric. And we'll be right back. Are you looking for a safe space to express who you are as a fabricaholic? Look, that seems funny and it's all weird and it's right for me to say that. But let's face it, if you're listening to this podcast, there's a fair chance that you have quite a substantial fabric collection and that you pay attention to what fabrics are being released, that you like being creative, that you make time for patchwork, and that you look for friends who share a similar outlook on life and a similar appreciation for creativity and sewing and fabric collection and what the latest designers are doing. Look, if that's you, the good news is I've started a safe place for all of us to get together. It's all about having a place where you can come, share your creativity, share your favourite fabrics. We're not going to be quilt police. We don't care if your favourite fabric is a fabric that's covered with rubber ducks. Bring it, sister. That's what we want to see. So if you're looking for like-minded people, why not check out Society Gnome? You can find all the details at gnomeangel.com. We look forward to welcoming you to the group. And now, on with the chat. So, can you tell me a little bit about what it is that you do for what's your, I was going to say job, but what is it? What is the service that you offer the quilting industry?
So what I'd like to focus on, because for me, especially when I first started sewing, I couldn't afford to make a full-size quilt. I just didn't have the financial resources to do that. So I started designing small projects that I could finish in a nap time or a weekend and that I could afford to do. So pillows and table toppers and things like that. And so that's kind of always been and continues to be my focus, is accessible, easy projects, but that also give you a chance to a place where you can practice your skills and get better at them, but also finish a project in a reasonable amount of time so that you don't get bored. Maybe it's because I get bored easily. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I can stick with things, but I also just like to know, like, I can start this and it will be done in a week, or it'll be done this afternoon, which to me is really gratifying and fits into the life that I have. I have 6 kids. So, it's chaos and busy and all of that stuff. And so that's where I came into it. And that's why I've stayed, is to try to create projects that you can still feel accomplished and you're proud of them because they took skill and they took effort. But you don't have to, if you're not very good at it yet, you can practice on it and not feel bad if you end up chucking the whole thing into the trash because you're like, nope, that was a big fail. So that's also why I do like a lot of mug rugs and a lot of pillowcases and stuff, because I love to do free motion quilting just on my little domestic machine. And doing small projects like that is a really great way to practice that kind of skill as well, because then you can, it doesn't matter. You're going to just stick your mug on it and stick your cookies on it and stuff anyway. So it doesn't matter if there's some skip stitches and, you forgot where you were going on that theme or whatever and started over. So.
But that is such a good, I had never thought of it like that, that if you don't have a lot of money and you don't have a lot of time and you're just starting out, small projects are a great way to go. My foray into quilting was I just went for quilts, and even now my go-to size is 80 inches by 80 inches because it's a good snuggle size. But I had never thought about, maybe a smaller project would have been more sensible. But that is such a good idea. And that is such a good way to introduce people to patchwork and get them addicted and hooked, and because we need the craft to grow, obviously, if we want to survive. Plus, you want people to have that sense of achievement, and I love it when someone goes, I made this. And there's a range of like a sliding scale of how confident people are when they go, I made this. There's the person who quietly goes, I made this. And then there's a person who goes, I made this and it's got pockets, like that whole, and you give people that ability to go, I made this. When they go to work on Monday, what did you do on the weekend? Oh, I made this and it's hanging in my cubicle at work, or it's someone's birthday. Here, I made this. It's a cushion. It's a mug rug set. That's a really beautiful thing to be able to go, I service that need for people. I'm envious of you being so clever and defined in that space. So I found you via your rainbow mug rug and your shop on Etsy, and I highly recommend, the link will be in the show notes, to go check out Amy's Etsy shop. But can you tell me, was that mug rug, so it's a mug rug that's like a sun and then a rainbow of sun rays behind it. Was that an early thing? Are you surprised at how popular that design has been? Or when you were making it, did you go, people are going to love this?
No. And actually it wasn't the first iteration of that. And the grown-up version of it is I call it my Rainbow Sunshine mini quilt or pillow. And so you can see it behind me in the video, but it's a similar thing. It's the sun with the rays. And then in the middle of the sun, there's embroidery that says you are my, and then in raw edge applique, it says sunshine at the bottom. And that has gone bonkers. That was one of my earlier projects. And at the time I was at a retreat with a lady who owned a quilt shop, and she said, I want to sell that pattern. I want to have that pattern. And I said, I can't write that pattern. I just I sketched out the letters for the raw edge applique by hand and like the embroidery by hand. And I was like, that's beyond my skill set. I don't know how to write that pattern. I just made it, And so I have since corrected that. It is a pattern now that can be purchased.
Were you doing patterns when she asked?
No.
No, okay, right. So completely out of left field to go, hey, make me a pattern.
So at the time I was doing more, I was making things for boutiques, and I was doing a little bit of work, mostly tutorials, blog tutorials online and stuff like that. I had started working with Riley Blake Designs on their design team, just doing projects with their new fabrics that were coming out and stuff. And so it was just something that I had, I was trying to remember if I was even doing it for a line or if I just was I really had this idea and wanted to put it together and see how it went. And then from that, I took and scaled it down to make the mug rug version as a way to both teach the technique, because the rays are done as quilt as you go. And so to be able to kind of demonstrate it and show people how to do it, but also to have, something free that you can go to and just try it out and see if you even like the method and that kind of thing. So it kind of came about after the other one. But I have been very surprised at the popularity of both, because the Rainbow Sunshine pattern continues to be my bestseller. And then that mug rug is one of my more popular posts ever.
But it's worth it. It is absolutely beautiful. And I think it, again, shows the power of, if you love something, that's going to really resonate with the people who love what you love. And the beauty of the internet is that there's another version of us out there that loves what we love in that aspect, and you can find them. Whereas once upon a time, we would have been the one rainbow loving person in a village. And you'd be like, anybody else love rainbow? Nope, you're on your own. So the internet has offered that ability for all of us to connect, and it's a really lovely thing. The name of this podcast is Fussy Cutters Club, and normally we talk to people about fussy cutting. And I want to say that you're not exactly a fussy cutter, it's not your go-to technique, but your quilt patterns are very fussy cuttable. Does that make sense? So, like the sunshine rays, you can use a directional print in the rays to give that movement of it going out. Any flowers, you can do dots for centers, and your patterns have that that ability in them. Is it something that you think about, or are you like, it's just luck that they can be used like that?
Oh, no, there's a lot of times that I will do. I have a pattern that is, they're dimensional fabric houses. So they originally were designed to be Christmas ones, but my favorite way to make them is for Halloween. And so there's windows and doors appliqued on there and stuff. And so my favorite thing is to fussy cut those so that there's a little ghost peeking out the window, or there's pumpkin faces in the windows or the door or whatever, or else I will take and fussy cut the pumpkin out of the fabric itself and use that as a decoration on the front of the house and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the different fabrics that I choose for, especially when it's, something that's, like a floral or whatever, and being very deliberate about the fabric and the directions and the, is it going to give it the feel of the texture of the flower center so it feels textured, or does it, so yeah, there's definitely a lot of intentionality into fabric placement and what I want it to look like. I have another pattern of fabric pumpkins they're dimensional pumpkins, and it's really fun to the wedges and to choose the direction and to choose the element that you want to frame a floral or to get it it's just, there's lots of different ways that I like to think about that,
fussy cut,
incorporate it. Yeah.
And so you work predominantly with Riley Blake fabrics?
I mean, I do a lot just because I had been on their design team, but at this point I'm kind of just doing my own thing and stuff. So I work with everything.
Yeah, everything. Because I was going to say Riley Blake have some funky Halloween fabrics that are perfect for fussy cutting and adding a little bit of a surprise element to patchwork and stuff like that. The houses that you've made, I'm assuming they're the ones on top of your shelf behind you.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so of course I had to make them in a rainbow as well.
I've been sitting here just going, that's so cool. I love it. Yes. So you've also got a membership now as well that people can join. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the membership is called Let's Sew Friends, and it's a membership focused on the kinds of patterns that I design. So one of my main things is I love to incorporate holidays and seasonality into my patterns and my designs, because that's what I love to surround myself with in my home. I have a lot of memories growing up of my grandma decorating for holidays and my mom decorating for holidays. And so I love to be able to do that. And so I've kind of carried that into both my patterns and the membership, but not all of the projects in there are necessarily seasonal. But what I do try to do is each month we incorporate a new technique or a new skill into that month's pattern. So each month you get a free pattern. We have a class that talks about that pattern. There's also a bonus pattern with a class. And then my favorite part of the whole thing is we have a sew day once a month where we get together over Zoom for 3 hours and we just sew together.
Wow.
And I am there to answer any questions or to help or anything like that. But we sit and chat and we, pause in the middle and kind of show our progress and see where everybody's at. And then we get back to sewing, and I get so much done because it's just 3 hours to sit and sew with my friends every month. And I usually use it as a time to catch up on all of the things that I started that month and didn't finish.
Yeah. So that's a really great community environment that you've fostered where people can come together. It's a safe space where they can share. There's no judgment about what they're sharing, about what fabrics they're using or how accurate they are or anything like that. It's just this safe space where they can come together, have a chat, create something. The seasonal thing's really interesting to me because when we travel in the US, I'm addicted to it. Like I just love, like the 4th of July, the red, white and blue comes out, then Halloween and then Christmas and then Valentine's. We don't do that. It's not a cultural thing here in Australia to do that. And so to see people go all in on it, I just love it. Is there a favorite season for you for creating? Like, do you go, I've got heaps of Christmas stuff or I've got heaps of Valentine's Day or like
I would say probably Halloween followed closely by Christmas. I mean, the two they're probably, for number of patterns, I may have more Christmas patterns total, but Halloween's right up there with them. It's real close.
Have you been to Disneyland for Halloween yet?
No.
Oh,
I know.
We went to. It is the best family holiday we've ever had. We went to Houston Quilt Market in 2019, so just before COVID. It was October, November of 2019. So I think in hindsight, I saw a thing like in the middle of 2020 that said the first case of COVID in the States had gone through LAX the day we flew out of LAX.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a real kind of fortuitous thing that we were sort of out of there. But we went to Quilt Market, and then the boys and I went to Disneyland, California for a week as they did the Oogie Boogie Bash for Halloween, and then as we were leaving, they were swapping over to Christmas. And as someone who, we don't do Halloween here, and I sewed us all Halloween, like I made a Halloween dress and I made Halloween shirts for the boys, and we made trick-or-treat bags and all that stuff, and just went all in, and it was amazing. And to this day, we still talk about how amazing Halloween was and could we do it here? And, and the short answer is no, we would be mocked mercilessly by my parents if we went all in on Halloween. But it's just I don't know why the States does it, but I love it. And so I completely get the Halloween thing. Are you more a cutesy Halloween or a gory Halloween?
Oh, like cutesy. All the way. No gore. Yeah. No gore.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, if I find a cute skeleton on fabric, I'm done. I'm like, yes, I'll have 2 yards of that, please. Just add it to the list. When Ruby Star releases their Halloween stuff, I'm like, yes, I'll have all of it. Thank you. And Riley Blake, I would love for Jill Zippy Bro. Is it?
Oh, yes. Howarth. Yes.
To do another Halloween-y please, come on.
She's one of my favorites. Her illustrations are just
so amazing, right? Yeah. And she's got Winnie the Pooh coming out, I think.
Yes.
Is her next one. I'm like, yeah, just take my money now.
Yeah.
Her Alice, I literally daydream about her Alice caterpillar floral motif that she did. I'm like, it is just perfection. And I'm like, it is weird that I love fabric as much as I love fabric. Do you have a good network of friends who you can talk to about fabric, or you can share, I found this fabric, or, like that kind of, do you have a patchwork posse at all?
I do. I am very lucky to know actually quite a few pattern designers and stuff. And so we get together every month on Zoom and chat and talk about all things, fabric and stuff like that. I don't have a lot of like in-person friends who understand what I do at all.
Me neither.
Like in my family, no, there's just, So I'm really grateful for the internet and for those friends, and now the friends in my membership who I can kind of get my little fix from all of them, because I don't have a lot of local people, but I do have my circle. So.
Yeah. And so with 6 kids, are any of the kids showing an inclination towards creating?
No, and that's mostly my fault. Because people are like, oh, you should teach your kids to sew. And I was like, I don't want them in my sewing room. Yes. And the free time that I would use to teach them to sew, I want to use to sew, and I want to have the good fabrics, and I want to, so very selfishly now there was a little moment where a couple of my girls were kind of interested in it. So I gave them one of my old machines and I set it up in their room, and I was like, I will thread it for you. But other than that, you're on your own. Here's all of my scrap fabric that I don't need or want anymore, and go for it. You go wing it and have fun. Because I wanted them to just play and experience it, and then if they were like serious about it, I would find someone else to teach them.
And it is really interesting to see as a parent, because I'm the same. He'll come down here and he'll be like, Mum, I need a set of scissors, and he'll like just go to pick scissors, and I'll be like, no, not one of those 73 hanging over there. You can have this old dodgy $2 pair I got. Here you go. And because he's not going to appreciate it the way that I appreciate it. But I like the idea that you let them play, because then you're not projecting your type of creativity or your structure. You let them find what they love. And then if they find something they love, then you get someone else to nurture it. Because I know when my parents taught me to drive, the car then became a source of stress. And so if you then teach your kids to sew, the sewing machine becomes a source of stress.
Yeah.
And so you don't want that. But it's the same, the kid and I play Minecraft together, and he's like, Mum, I want to start a Minecraft YouTube channel. And I'm like, why must you take the one thing I like and make it work?
Yeah. And there's that part of it too. Because we've already we've taken our hobby and turned it into a job and stuff like that. So then I was like, but when I do have a minute to just sew for fun or whatever, I just want it to be my time. It's my selfish, for me time. So,
but I heard someone explain motherhood, and it's one of the things that I often use to justify my choices. But they're like, motherhood is like being on an airplane, and when the stewardess says to you, you have to put on your oxygen mask before you can help someone else. Motherhood's the same thing. You have to make sure that your cup is full before you can start pouring that into somebody else's cup. And so I think as women, and I try not to get into that, it's a female thing, it's a male thing, it's a bit of, but I find predominantly if you're in a position of caring for others, then the tendency is to give everything to others. And so we don't gatekeep the stuff that fills out. We just tend to give. And I think it's a sign of maturity, and especially if you've struggled with mental health issues, to be able to go, no, this is for me. This is my gas mask, oxygen mask. I need this before I can give it to someone else. And we'll be right back. If you're like me, you love quilting. You love fabric. You love patchwork. You love everything to do about it. When you're not doing something for work related or family related, or you've got free time on your hands, what you're thinking about is quilting. Quilting, 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 fabric, 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 patchwork, patchwork, patchwork. That's all it is. If this is you, then I have the challenge for you. 100 days, 100 blocks. It's a simple challenge. I ask you to sew one patchwork block a day for 100 days. If you're interested in sewing along with me for 100 days as we make a 100 block sampler quilt, then check out all the information at gnomeangel.com. Click the link in our bio and description for more, and I can't wait to see you there and to sew along with you. And now, on with the chat. Did you find that your postnatal depression coloured your use of creativity? Do you think that that's the thing that you relied on to get through that, or was it a combination of things?
Yeah, and that's also part of what I like to use when I explain the membership and why I feel like it's so powerful to be a part of it is. And in fact, the pattern that I designed for last month is a sewing machine, but then it has the words embroidered around it, claim your creativity. Because I feel like we each inherently have a need to be creative, to create and bring something into the world. And it might not be sewing for everyone. It might be gardening, or it might be art or whatever. But for us, it's sewing and creating. But so often we neglect that. I'll get to my sewing room when the laundry's done and the dishes are done and all the chores are finished and that kind of thing. And that's why I wanted to start the membership, because I wanted women in particular, but whoever, to be able to be like, I'm claiming this time. I'm claiming this space to learn and to grow and to develop the skills and the talents that I enjoy. And I'm claiming this little 3-hour block every month that's just for me, that I am just locking my door and, excuse me, turning on the music, and I'm just going to sew. And so that's one of the messages that I try to share, even on Instagram and stuff like that, but that we all have the right to claim our creativity, to own it, and to, it doesn't matter if you have kids or not have kids or, whatever. Everybody's life is so busy and there's so much pulling on us all of the time. I just feel like it's so powerful to own your thing, whatever that thing is, and just lean into it as hard as you can. And not everybody has the budget to do all the big things. And that's another reason why I try to keep my patterns on a scale, or at least most of them, that are doable and accessible. And you can spend, less than $20 on fabric, and then you have something finished that you can use, whether it's a cover for your pillow cushions or your, a mug rug that you can just, enjoy or gift or whatever. And so, yeah, it has been a very powerful thing in my life, not only for my mental health healing, but also just in the chaos of all that life is and the chaos of motherhood. It was the one place I could just be Amy, and I didn't have to be mom or wife or, any of the other things. I could just be me.
Yeah.
And that's what I held on to and still do. I mean, I love that I get to make this my job, because I still really love it, even though it is work sometimes. So.
Yeah. And there's a couple of things that you've said in there. And I think it's really, I don't want to sound naff and go all Hallmark Channel on you, but I really love that you recognize something within yourself, and then you've created a space where women can do that same thing. You were like, this creativity healed me, and now I'm building a safe space for other women to tap into that, or other creatives, other men, other people to go in there and create and make that time a priority for them. And that's a really beautiful thing. And I think it gets lost sometimes in the culture of busy, that making that time is important, and it's that time that fills your cup and all of those sorts of things. So, it doesn't mean anything for me, but gold star for you for making that gold scissors we should have. And the other thing that I think is really important is that you are focusing on the business as a business, not an expensive hobby, as my father sometimes calls my business, where, you are creating this thing that's helping to support your family and gives you something. And as you said, a lot of us took the thing that made us happy, our hobbies, and turned it into a business. And if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a couple of business related things, because I think it's really important, especially in social media, where the side hustle is glorified and women are pressurized to turn what they do to fill their cup into a side hustle and make money from it. And there's that old adage that if you do something you love and you make it your job, you'll never work a day in your life again.
Right.
Do you agree with that, or do you go, no, no?
No, it's still very much work. And actually, I very intentionally did not grow it into a business until my kids were older. So my youngest is now almost 9. And it really hasn't been until the last 2 or 3 years that I have really tried to make it into an actual business. Now, I mean, I would make zipper pouches and things and sell them at boutiques, around the holidays to try to make extra Christmas money or things like that. And that was why working on the design team for Riley Blake for me was the way I could feed my creativity, because they would send me the fabric, I would make the thing, and it was a win-win for both of us, because I couldn't afford to go out and buy the fabric. And so that was what I did. But I wasn't even trying to write patterns. I wasn't trying to, do a bunch of marketing or anything like that. I very intentionally kept it as my hobby for a really long time. And I just practiced and tried to get better and better at it, so that when I was ready, I had I was ready to go. But I very intentionally did not do it for a while, because it is work. And I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way, but I don't spend nearly as much time at my sewing machine as I would like, because I have to be on the computer and I'm, writing the pattern, or I'm, doing reels, or I'm creating, marketing stuff, or I'm filming a video, and I'm not at my sewing machine as much as you would think somebody who sews things for a living would, So it's very much a business, but it wasn't always, and that was on purpose.
Yeah. And I'm the same. That balance between the guilt of not being with your child, but being at home. And it's stupid. Like I just kind of go, it is just that negative self-talk, because I grew up in a house where my parents ran their own business for like ever, and they were always home. They were at work, but they were working downstairs and we were living upstairs. And so I always had them. Whereas my friends whose parents went to like a 9-to-5 job, they weren't at home when they got home from school. And I never saw that as a child, that my parents were always accessible. And now I'm in a similar position where my kid, who's 12, I'm always home, but I might be in the studio or I'll be in the office or something. But I still find really guilt-ridden that if he gets home from school, I make sure that we have that first half hour together, so that, I'll get him a snack and and then I can go back to work. But he still says it to me at times where he'll go, "Oh, Mum, you're always at work." And I think, "Oh, buddy, you're not going to appreciate Mum's kind of work until you're in your 20s and 30s, or you get into high school and your mates are going home to a empty house and you're coming home to Mum who's got a brownie and a drink waiting for you." And so it is interesting to see in our industry how people balance that thing. And so your choice to go, "Oh, I'm not," because doing the math, your youngest would have been around 6, which I'm assuming meant they were at full-time school at 6 in the US. Mm-hmm. So you were able to use school hours, my assumption is school hours, to work and then be there when they got home and all of those sorts of things. And so, and I'm very aware that that's a luxury that we've had, that, all of those sorts of things. So it is really interesting. But as you said, it's still work. And so so I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you do all of your IT support, like you do the website, the membership stuff, the shopping carts.
I do all of it. I'm me.
All of it?
It's all me.
So is there an aspect of the business? I don't do books, the bookkeeping. I hate the money side of things. And so I have someone who very kindly helps with that. Is there a part of the business that you don't like that you outsource or that you put off?
I'm just now getting to the point where I'm starting to outsource some things. And what I have started with is the housework. and that kind of thing. Because there's just so much that you do just in charge of your home and that kind of thing. And I just was like, this is one thing that I can let go of. I don't like the numbers either. And I do have an accountant to do the taxes and stuff now. So that has been great. But other than that, I still do everything. I would love to eventually get somebody to do my like Pinterest and my, some of that kind of thing that gets just a little bit redundant. But I still love doing the reels, and I like being on Instagram, and I like a lot of the marketing stuff and all that. But I did want to go back to one of the things you were talking about that guilt that you feel when you're working. And I think that it applies whether you're doing it to make money or you're taking that time for yourself. And, you're just like, I'm off limits for a couple of hours while I reset and I go do this thing, or you want to go out with your friends or whatever that is. There's so much guilt put on mothers in particular for the time that we take. But I think, especially with it being a business now, I think about the example that I'm setting for my kids, and especially my girls, of this is something that I am pursuing because I love it so much. And especially with my membership, I feel so strongly the power of the space that I'm creating and the permission that I hope I'm communicating to women to take control of their own needs and to claim that space for themselves. And so I want to show my girls, and especially, but all of my kids, that there are things that are worth working for. There are things that are worth sacrificing for. And I mean, right now my kids it's summer here. And so they're home from school for the summer break. And I mean, there's times that I only see my 9-year-old like 3 times during the day. and I, there's days that I'm just like, oh, I'm just the worst. But I just keep going back to, it's so important for her to see me striving to build this thing that matters a lot to me and hopefully will matter to the women who are in the membership and the people who join in there and stuff. But to be able to offer a part of myself to the world and to have my kids see me doing that, I feel like it only adds to my motherhood, and it only adds to what I bring to them instead of detracting from them. And so those moments when the guilt does crop up, because it does, there's that reminder that what I'm doing is important to me, and I feel the why of it so much that it's worth taking that time and showing them through my example that hard work and determination and the willingness to sacrifice there's times that that's really important and powerful.
Yeah. And so I completely 1,000%. Oh, I hate when people do that. I 100%, because you can't have more than 100%, agree with you. And I think I hadn't thought about it actively like that. But on the school, look, like our kids have just had a 3-week school holiday and they've gone back to school this week. And I find his schooling is so different to the schooling that I did. He's at school from 8:15 to 4:30 most days because he does an after school activity, or, you know, they've got some sort of school project or production or something. Like, he has a very busy Monday to Friday. And on the school holidays, I said to him, buddy, do you want to catch up with some of your friends? I'll organise play dates because we work from home. They can come here, you know, da-da-da-da. And he went, no, I think I just need some alone time to do some stuff for me. And I was like, oh, okay, no worries.
Good for him. And okay. Good on you for teaching him that.
And that's the thing I hadn't thought about. And I was talking to Sam Hunter from Hunter's Design Studio, and I said, our kid just said this to me. And she went, oh, good for you, role modelling that he needs to look after himself. And I was like, oh, okay, yep, all right. And he did. He went back to school this week, and I said to him on the first day back when he got home, I was like, how was it? And he was like, it was great. I got to catch up with everyone, and we got to play and da-da. And he was recharged again for that. And I was like, yes, okay, yep, no worries. And so I think, it is really important because, like I said, this culture of busy, it wasn't there when I was a kid. Like, my memories of childhood are reading Stephen King books, drawing, scrapbooking, like making my own fun. Whereas now I look at his childhood and I go, oh, it is full of stuff, and they are constantly bombarded with technology and screens and all, and they have to adjust to that, and they have to learn because that's not going away. But they don't have that downtime that we used to just innately get. Like, Saturdays used to be for cartoons, right?
Yeah.
Whereas now Saturdays for hockey and for youth group and you're just like, dude, your life is busier than mine. And so to see that, and now to see you giving women that safe space to be able to go, all right, this is important. Downtime is important. This culture of busy is just going to burn you out and spit you out the other side, and it's not going to care. It's going to keep rolling. So do you see a change in women from when they first joined the membership to like 6 months after? Like, do you see some sort of...
I only started it in January, so...
Oh, yep. So that's 6 months, 7 months. Yep.
We're just hitting that 6 month, but like the women who show up consistently, like we have our little community now, and we know where each other lives, and we're cheering each other on with the projects that we're working on, and, you know, learning about grandkids and all of the different things. And it's just so fun to see that genuine investment and interest in each other starting to form and things like that. And I'm hopeful that there's a lot of silent lurkers in there. And so I'm hoping that we can figure out a way to kind of get them engaged a little bit more, because one of the things for me that is so important is being open with each other, being real with each other, being willing to share the things that are hard, being willing to talk about, you know, and to mess up in front of each other and that kind of thing. And that's one thing that I always try to share on. I mean, if you follow me on Instagram, I always share my messy craft room. It just gets so messy. And I like sharing, this is the reality of what it looks like. It's not all pristine and everything's in its proper rainbow order spot most of the time. I mean, most of the time in complete disarray, and sharing the things that are hard, and sharing, like, when I first started doing free motion quilting, and I have that quilt still that I did with all of the eyelashing, and the back bobbin thread is like not even pulled into the stitch. It's just sailing along the back because I didn't know anything about tension and thread speed regulation and all of that. I mean, it's just a disaster. And I will show close-ups of that on Instagram, like, here is what it looked like. Here's where I started, and be willing to just let yourself be bad at things. Yeah. And so that, I'm hoping that people will get more comfortable with, like, it's not perfect, and my points are wonky and stuff. I mean, there are no quilt police. I will not allow for it. We are all just who we are. And we're all, if you're so worried about perfection, you stop having fun, then that's a no-go for me. I'll give you tips to help you get better, but I never want you to feel like if it's not exactly square, or if these points don't exactly line up, then I'm judging you and, like, oh, it's no good. It's not about that for me, because I want it to be healing. I want it to be restorative. I want it to be fun. And so, and it's more fun when it works out, right? The way you want it to. So it is worth practicing. It is worth learning the skills and then taking it all with a grain of salt.
But some of the best things that I've learned have come from massive failures. And I say failures in inverted commas, but that to me, I'm like, if you don't give yourself permission to fail, you're not giving yourself permission to learn. Because if it's the fact that your thread just went sailing along, that you went, oh, that's not right. What have I got to do? All right, I know next time not to do this. And so I think, and it's that social media thing of perfection and feeding this unrealistic expectation on ourselves. But if you were perfect every time, where's the fun in that? Right. Because it's like if you're constantly happy and there's no sadness and there's no jubilation, how do you know what happy is? And so if you're constantly making things perfect, how do you know when it is perfect? How do you appreciate what goes into making it perfect? Or like all of those things. And I think that's the roller coaster, as much as I hate roller coasters in real life, but the roller coaster of learning is the whole point of learning. And I think sometimes we forget that. And at QuiltCon, when you start seeing people posting, oh, this was my QuiltCon reject, I feel like going, like, embrace that. Don't just because some person arbitrarily decides what's in and what's out doesn't determine the value or the worth of the hours that you spent making that, or the personal gains that you had from making that. And so it's really great that you've created this environment where that's going to be championed and people can come and share that. And I think just a note on the lurkers, because I'm not a lurker, right? I'm like, here, look at me, look what I made. It has pockets.
Me either. I'm very loud.
My husband is a lurker, like an absolute lurker. And he'll spend hours on Twitter or Instagram but never comment. And I'm like, dude, why are you wasting the time if you're not interacting? But his cup is filled from watching other people. It's that seeing other people do it is what makes him happy. And so I think there's always going to be a percentage of lurkers in a community. And one of the things that I've found with him is the friends that he's made through those kind of platforms are the people who've DM'd him like, hi, I've seen you followed me, if you need it, like that kind of, but they do it privately. And so, which I totally don't understand. I'm all about living in the, but there are those people who that's going to be the thing that, and I think, so don't be too stressed about the lurkers, but yeah, it's a good thing if people are actively lurking. That makes sense. Because he's logging in and checking. He's just not commenting on anything. But, yeah, it's It's a really beautiful thing. And I'm so thankful that you've given your time today to talk about it and to share a bit about your process and who you are and what's brought you to this spot. I wish nothing but good things for the membership, and we'll have the links and everything to that safe space. I want to go join and hang out with Amy and get some of her patterns and some of her wisdom and techniques and just absorb some of her rainbow goodness. Is there anything that we've missed, Amy, that you want to cover, or you're like, no, we've talked about everything?
One thing that just might be helpful is for people when they see on Instagram or whatever, my name of my business is Ameroonie Designs. And it's hard to say and it's hard to spell. So sometimes just hearing it and knowing what that sounds like. My grandma, when I was growing up, my grandma used to call me Ameroonie Bambooni. And so when I was trying to think of a blog name, I was like, I'll go with Ameroonie. No one will have that name. Well, of course they won't, because it's impossible to say and spell. But but it's too late now. It's been however many since 2008. So it is what it is. But yeah, so I just thought throwing that out there might be helpful so that people can know. Yeah. It's Ameroonie Designs.
Yeah. What is it with grandmothers? My grandmother used to call me Angelina Baskina. And I'm like, how am I going to put that on anything? Yeah, I get the same. So a lot of times people will be like, what is yours? And I'm like, it's GnomeAngel. Just one word, GnomeAngel. It's a gnome with wings. That's and so sometimes when I spell my email address out, I'll be like gnome as in the garden ornament, angel as in the thing on top of a tree.
And I just have to spell all the letters, because it's like if I try to, people would just look at me like that's not a real word, and I'm like, I know, I really know.
Yours will be like Mississippi, MISS. You're like AROONIEE. Is it EE?
No, it's just one E. It's AM as in monkey, EROONIE. So Ameroonie.
Yep. But
there's no I to make it, like if it was AIM, that might make more sense with the pronunciation. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're just going with it.
Just
at this
embrace
point.
It.
That's right.
No one's going to take you to copyright trade IP thing over it.
No, no one's trying to steal that puppy, so we're good.
But I was talking to Pemmy Jane, who's fabric designer and quilt pattern designer. She's with Dear Stella, but her logo is her head, right? So, but it's the silhouette of her messy bun and her glasses. And we were talking about how she gets recognized places because she looks like her logo.
Oh,
and I'm like, yeah, well, you see, no one's going to steal that because you look like you.
Yeah.
Yep. And she's like, yeah, but sometimes, and I'm like, nope, that's the way.
Yep.
Yep. You got to go out there, embrace it. I do wish, because I picked mine back in 2002 when I was just blogging randomly. Mine has nothing to do with what I actually do. And sometimes I think, to rebrand and be able to go something that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Same.
It is what it is.
At this point, just love it.
Is your grand still around?
No, she's not. She passed away a couple of years ago, and I have a couple of things there's a purple chair in my sewing room that was hers and stuff. So she was actually one of my best friends. So I'm like, at this point, it just means so much to me to have given it the name. So
yeah, that's great. The same. The friend that gave me my name passed away really young. And so I kind of go, it's a little bit of her still here. But yeah, it is really beautiful. But yes, so thank you. Before I get all teary and I'm off thinking about how great my name was, we will wrap up, say thank you, and we'll talk to you again soon, I hope, in probably another 6 months, see how that membership's going, see what your fandom's doing. But yeah. Thanks so much, Amy.
It was delightful.
Thanks for listening to the Fussy Cutters podcast. Enjoyed listening? Why not subscribe so you'll never miss an episode? Did you know the quickest way to the heart of any podcaster is to leave a review or recommend the podcast to a friend? It's true, it is. Until next week, get out there and fondle that fabric.